Добрый день, уважаемые участники форума.
Good day, dear participants of the forum.
Предстоит
Today, we're about to discuss a topic that has come to prominence over the last 2 years, and it's become important not just for the government but also for businesses, and it's related to man. Man
Вы знаете, когда мне
at the center of everything, the new management model. When I was
подошел
when I was invited to moderate this session, I started thinking
как по результатам
about how to go about that. A couple of years ago, I would have spoken about structuring the economy of the outcome of the fourth industrial revolution to build new jobs, to create new professions for people who were freeing up due to the changes that were ongoing. Because technologies had
бизнесом.
been becoming better, because new models for management had been introduced. But the last couple of years have created new challenges and objectives, and that is why we've seen a tectonic shift on the part of the government, and also the requirements of the people with regard to the government have shifted as well, and business management models have evolved. The pandemic, the geopolitical situation have had a serious impact upon man's world perception. Historically, a human being has always been the driving force behind progress, because human being was the creator. And it was done in order to provide for the family, to provide society, community with everything for a comfortable life, and the government was doing everything to protect human person. And over the last couple of years, the most prominent topic, the most salient one, has been environmental protection. ESG has come to the forefront. Environment, social, governance, and ESG principles are increasingly often cited in the context of strategic goals and objectives. I do not think ESG is something new in today's world. I first came to the World Economic Forum back in 2000 to Davos, and, the themes of discussions were basically the same. Everyone was talking about the social aspect, about the governance and business management and efficiency. Everyone was talking about the environment. But, the sequence, the order was a little bit different. Right now, we talk about the environment, social, and governance, but all three aspects have a direct bearing on the human factor. Our company has conducted a survey of the leading world companies, and it turns out that in today's world, human personnel, governance, and corporate culture are the first ones in the order of importance for companies, and others not so important right now. The order has somewhat shifted. 95% of Russian companies that participated in this questionnaire believe that the greatest changes in their business are going to happen due to personnel management. Today, I would like to introduce the participants of our today's discussion: Alexander Zhukov, First Deputy Chair of the State Duma of the Federation Assembly of Russia, and Oleg Belozerov, CEO and Chair of the Board, Russian Railways. Good day. Well, to set the tone for our discussion, it would be interesting to have a discussion, to listen to your viewpoint. How exactly do you see the theme of our today's discussion? Mr. Zhukov, maybe we can start with you. Well, I think in your introductory remarks, you were very apt in describing this theme. I believe that during these years of the pandemic, we have felt it firsthand. Everything has importance. Economy is important. But in the end, the most important value is human life. And if we have a look at how the government sees that, then I think in the most concentrated form, we see this reflected in the July decree adopted by President Putin of Russia. This decree is all about the human person, and this decree is socially oriented, and it covers almost all aspects of our life. The most important thing is to preserve human life, to increase population, to raise life expectancy. And I would like to point out that the objectives in this decree are very ambitious. By 2030, life expectancy has to rise to 78 years on average, as per this decree. That is the objective set therein. But in order to accomplish that, we need to address a great number of issues, first and foremost in the field of healthcare. This is something we've run against firsthand. But to fight the pandemic, as you can see, we've built hospitals, we have taken drastic measures. But this decree says that this is not just about response and reaction, this is about prevention, and healthcare has to be improved, and this responsibility is first and foremost incumbent upon the government. There is another aspect related to decreasing the poverty level in Russia. Unfortunately, in Russia, the poverty level is still quite high, despite some accomplishments, and the government has to seek to make sure that people live better, to decrease the number of poor people in Russia, to halve this number as compared to 2017. As a matter of fact, almost all national projects and government programs are aimed at accomplishing these goals. All government expenses that are funneled into healthcare, education, poverty eradication, economic development, in the end, seek to improve the lives of our citizens. And these objectives are impossible to accomplish without a fully fledged engagement of the government in improving education, improving healthcare. Indubitably, digital economy is important. Environmental programs are equally important. You've mentioned ESG principles, but ESG principles first and foremost directly apply to specific enterprises, but the same goals are pursued by the government. I refer to environmental programs, because we know all too well that the state of the environment has a direct impact on the health of our citizens, on their well-being. Social programs are important too. In addition to large-scale government-run social programs, it's important that business follows in the government's footsteps, but without a direction set by the government, it would be impossible to move forward. Another salient aspect is how companies are improving their governance, how they treat their employees. We've got the CEO of one of Russia's biggest companies joining us in this studio. As far as the number of your employees goes, you're one of the biggest companies even in Europe, and the company is performing well. If that's the case, if the employees feel protected, then it is also an important contribution to developing human capital in our country. What I can tell you is that, at least as of now, in Russia, everyone understands that human being has to be the centerpiece of any government action. I've come here from the meeting of the Government Commission that has decided to make some important amendments to the law. These amendments have been announced by the President, namely to indexate the pensions. You know, our constitution has been adjusted, and right now it stipulates that the minimum wage, well, the minimum wages have to be, the minimum salary has to be superior to minimum wages, you know, to minimum subsistence level. And of course, pension has to be based on that as well, because that will allow us to ensure a better life for our citizens. And these provisions, and especially the human-centered approach, are enshrined in our constitution.
Oleg Valentinovich.
Yes, thank you. That's very important. Mr. Belozerov, the human-centered approach, that's important too. So as the head of one of the Russian biggest companies, what do you think what this approach involves? Thank you, Alexander. You said that you decided to give some thought to how you were going to run this session when you were invited to moderate it. I think this session is of the utmost importance, and all other sessions will be in addition to that. They will have another take on that, and everything will be ultimately related to improving the lives of people and improving their communication, interaction. I represent one of Russia's biggest companies here, and indeed this is one of one of the world's biggest companies. We have 1 million people employed, and for us, ESG principles are not something new. For Russian railways, our main asset is not the material assets, but our competences and our people, our personnel. As mentioned very aptly, people are an asset, and this asset requires care. Care for each and every aspect. So right now we're trying to study and have a look at the perception, at the feedback from each and every person, from each and every employee. So it's not a general survey. You know, we've heard this term already, the economy of happiness. Each and every person has to be comfortable, has to feel good. And as one of the biggest employers, we're interested in making sure that each and every employee feels that the company cares for them. And we have to live up to their expectations if they work for us. We need to ensure career growth, protection against negative environment. We have to create opportunities for personal growth, for family.
Мы занимаемся, ну, во-первых, как я сказал, это всегда исторически было в российских.
And historically, this has been a tradition. The Russian railways, collective bargain is an important element of that. Recently, it has gone through some important changes. It has been complemented by a number of additional elements. And right now, finally, we have heard how it can be, you know, articulated, what the formula for what we have been doing all along is, and that is ESG. And we've been one of the pioneers in the field, and we've always treated these aspects with respect. We believe that this human-centered approach is of great import inside the company. But as a business, we also have to be human-centered for the external environment as well. Because, you know, this is one of the main sources of our revenue. In the past, it was client-oriented approach. But I think this has to be more general. It's a human-centered approach. Everything we do for the sake of the human being. We need to see, ultimately, whether that satisfies the citizens, because it's the citizens who pay for our services. Well, we can, you know, transport people from one place to another in different conditions. But if the conductor is friendly, if the carriage is great and comfortable, then, you know, it's a whole new approach to providing a service. I think that this year there is an example I would very much like to cite. We have come up with a new product, which is called the Train of Father Frosts.
Здесь за последний год предоставили большое количество туристических маршрутов.
So, over the course of last year, we came up with a number of tourist routes, and my colleagues have come up with a new project. So it's not directly related to what we do. This is not about transporting goods or transporting passengers, but this has become a major centerpiece of our approach. This train has created wonderful impressions for our children, and it is circulated, and it's been to more than 30 cities and towns across the country, and people want more because it brings joy. And I think it's a very good product for us as the Russian railways. Yes, this feeling of joy at the festivities, that is great. And it gives you a chance, to communicate with people. And it's always very pleasant and pleasurable. And I think this is something that needs to be done. And that also testifies to the fact that the company views its business, its activities, not just as a standardized product, but as a creative product that provides people with additional benefits, which brings them joy. That's a great project. From my personal experience, I can comment on that as well. Just 15 years ago, when I thought how to get to St. Petersburg, there was no other choice but taking an aircraft. It was the most comfortable way to get to St. Petersburg. Right now, it's Sapsan. I cannot imagine myself going to Sheremetyevo, going through all the boarding procedures and the clearance. No, it's far more convenient to hop on a train on Sapsan and get to St. Petersburg. And as a customer, as a consumer, I'm very satisfied. Well, yes, do use the services of the railways of Russia. Yes, very soon probably it'll take but 2 hours to get to St. Petersburg. Yes, this project is moving forward very fast. And it's not just about raising the speed, but also, developing the economy. And the goods throughput capacity is going to be better for the northwest of Russia as well. I have to say that transport connectivity is essentially a great project, not just in terms of railroads. And for such a country as Russia, raising this connectivity is always human-centered. It's about creating a comfortable environment for people, increasing connectivity for different purposes, for business purposes, for tourist purposes. Without that, Russia's development as a modern economy would be nigh impossible. Absolutely. I agree with that. The infrastructure developed by the government and the business serves as a foundation for comfortable life for our citizens. I start to diverge a little bit from the plan for the discussion that I came up with, but if we look at how companies are working, everything related to the environment, to social support, in the past, it was mostly about a form of GR to maintain good relations with the governor. Right now, it has evolved, turning into an ecosystem for the business. The business comes to realize the need to create a comfortable, convenient environment in the region where they're active, helping universities, schools, athletic organizations, healthcare systems, to make sure that the region and business work in synergy to develop further. This becomes the foundation of new modus vivendi, and our country is moving in the right direction. And right now, the government and business converge in terms of their viewpoint, and they go hand in hand. Absolutely. Before the beginning of our session, we spoke about that. This is a world trend, and Russia has to keep abreast with it. These standards in terms of environment protection, social responsibility, transparency, as well as good governance, are not just about the image of a company. They have a direct bearing on the company's financial standing. Because increasingly often young people come to understand how salient it is to understand what the company gives back to society, not just its financial standing, but it's about its contribution. So we are moving from this hardcore capitalism centered around profits towards a more socially responsible capitalism. And it's not just the government that now bears these social responsibility functions, but the businesses as well. And this is something that's taken into account at the stock exchange when an IPO is carried out, how well the company performs in carrying out its social duties, how good it is at protecting the environment, how efficient it is at implementing these programs. And the government has to encourage that. And the government has to create better conditions for such companies. Yes, there is a question as to how exactly we calculate that, but this is an obvious trend. So, in the past, the government was the only instance that could issue a sanction to a business to carry out its work, but right now society weighs in as well, and it helps determine the worth of the company. So it's not just about the financial standing, the profitability. There is non-financial reporting right now that is becoming increasingly prominent. So the company has to reveal not just its financial indicators, but also how it helps the environment, how it carries out social programs, and how it treats its employees, whether these employees have a chance to train, reskill, whether there are any social lifts, whether they're provided with housing. Absolutely, that's exactly the case. If we look at the world trends, then we'll see that China is lagging behind in environmental protection. But as far as the Shanghai Stock Exchange goes, more than 70% of companies listed there report on sustainable development as per the ESG standards, and the same trends are emerging in Europe. Around 10,000 companies report on ESG standards in Europe, and by 2026, this will have reached 100%. Everyone is moving in the same direction, and we have the same trend, and our big companies take that into account as well.
I think we should progress on that, and Russian Federation has acceded to the Sustainable Development Convention. So we are to embrace all these trends, and the faster, the fairer our society is going to become. And the figures, the numbers you have cited, I mean, the opinion polls with respect to having all the state policies human-centered, and this is an obvious trend. And of late we have achieved a lot, and I fully share the perspective of Alexander Dmitrievich, and we kind of groped forward to some extent, but now we have a clearer vision, and with some standards we are ahead of our international colleagues. There are around 16 goals, and we are to advance on all of them. But anyway, we are proud with our progress, and actually we have the lead in the environmental conservation. We issue international green bonds, and we can hence have lower rates, and now our reports are in compliance with the ESG practices, and that will provide additional scope of opportunities for us. But on the other hand, well, is it about discretion or a need? Well, today it is a sore need, because the key link of our operation is human. We should have competent high-skilled manpower, committed and dedicated to their work. And for that, we need the enabling conditions that will give much greater performance, and that will mean huge investments, but these investments will yield results. I agree with you, but seizing this opportunity, let me ask a question that is of interest to many of our viewers and listeners. You said that you are the biggest Russian company with about 1 million on payroll, with different professions on board, financial analysts, like construction professionals. We have everything. We have it all. We are a standalone state, so to say. But how you develop the human capital, given your huge geographical footprint and having a lot of different professions on board, how do you cope with all that? Well, with respect to reporting, we've been doing fine, and the main outcome that I can see, well, according to the Federal Public Sentiment Center, we rank number 2 with respect to the satisfaction of our personnel, and we used to be in the well, around like from 20 to 30. In the top 30 we used to be, and now we're in top 3. And we have our workers portal with more than 300,000 people registered there. You can receive certificates and benefits there online, and you can chart your own career trajectory and see what the options are. And, well, additional reskilling and learning materials also are available on that portal. Our corporate university was recognized as the best in the world last year. We have around 700,000 people working, and each year around 110,000 people take courses there at our corporate university, and we are obliged to do that, myself and the other top managers, and we're taught state-of-the-art practices. We know how to move, how to design our strategies. And it is a comprehensive system comprising all levels. And, you know, we allocate 1 hour to all our employees within their working hours to undergo these training courses. But I believe that you should dedicate 1 hour a week to learning and training, and the employer should provide the necessary conditions for that. Well, apart from that, we are moving forward as a nation, so we try to provide proper living and housing conditions for railway workers, with a separate highlight on the Far East, with preferential rate mortgages and construction of hospitals and sports facilities to improve the living standards of our people. So what we need is to make our personnel convenient. That refers and relates to sports, learning, healthcare, housing, and we try to attract different types of professionals in our organization. It must be a balanced company working as a single whole, and our performance
президентом Российской
has been improving. We have been matching all the targets set forth by President and the federal government, but this is
конкретного человека.
the merit, first and foremost, of all our personnel on the ground. So, addressing the needs of each and every personnel member, each and every individual, means the human-centered approach. I support your point that we should keep learning continuously, because we should not lag behind the changes in the world. Who could have thought about the priorities that we're now having? Like 3 years ago, we had quite a different agenda. And Mr. Zhukov, I have a question to you. We keep saying that the legal framework often trails the real life developments. What do you think should be the novelties in legislation to provide the support of the governmental authorities, catering most importantly to the needs of people? Well, first of all, the authorities' measures must be enabling for people and empowering. Like the social treasury was mentioned, which is one example. And we also know that in this country it takes a lot of effort to receive a certificate, so we still have the legacy red tape from the Soviet times, but now at the digital age, things are becoming much easier. And the goal of the government is to make these services for people as accessible as possible. And second, we keep having some unnecessary controls and restrictions and confines that yield nothing positive. Let me make reference to the cancellation of the obligatory car review that actually didn't improve road safety. It was a cumbersome procedure, and you can cite more examples of the type. So we should do our utmost to pass laws that will be based on the human needs. And this is our aspiration. I can tell you, as a representative of the United Russia Party, our program is built upon around 2 million proposals we received from people. That relates to all types of activities, like building sports grounds. As our president instructed us to see to it that 75% of our people should practice sports. Then comes the rural development and social infrastructure there. Another important point is having the kindergarten capacity, the sufficient capacity, and all the federal and regional authorities should be guided by the needs of people. But unfortunately, sometimes, well, the authorities put their interests first because they want their own convenience, but they should proceed from the convenience of people, and all the instructions on the laws, all the memos should be based on the convenience of people. And today, our digital age and the time of the pandemic, the context of the pandemic, well, helps us switch to using the digital technologies and solutions. And we are to use all of the state-of-the-art solutions, the telemedicine, the AI, and other novelties to make people's lives easier. And that has already been happening because the digital solutions help us interact with the government, like the multifunctional centers network works fine. May I make a clarification? I fully agree with Mr. Zhukov saying that the government, the authorities must provide, are obliged to provide good living conditions and good life standards to people, to employees. And as soon as we take a new individual on board, we should provide him or her with all the available benefits. And the government, the authorities should inform individuals that they are entitled to this and that, and eligible for this and that. So people should not dig for benefits, but they should be informed, and they should have a right to choose. And we had it in a different way in the past, when people had to beg for benefits and allowances. I remember someone saying that the consumers' claims and complaints don't constitute prongs or ripostes. No, they are opportunities to improve the operation. Well, I believe that now the authorities start being aware of a need to establish the proper process everywhere across the board that will enhance people's comfort and convenience. And we should always keep measuring the level of our progress, our headway. The Russian Railways has the satisfaction index. We have several indices on cargo shippers and passengers. And last year, the clients showed the highest scores. Well, for passenger traffic, yes, but with respect to the cargo shippers, we have gone down a bit, unfortunately. But our index is a composite one, depending on the operators and others, so we should probably enhance the manageability of that system. I wonder, just kind of in three main bullets, what are your targets for your clients? How do you want to accommodate your clients by 2030? Any novel ideas? Any fresh thoughts to implement, to provide new services to your clients? If it's not a secret, it is not a secret. And currently the fewer secrets we have, and the more transparent you are, the better your standing at the market will be. So definitely we want to enhance the user experience and the convenience of our passengers. We want to enhance the conditions of the long-haul transportation. And with respect to the commuting, travel, well, it should not be regarded as travel per se. It should be part of your daily routines, and people must have an opportunity to carry on with their work and routines while on board a train. So it should be instant and rapid, and should not provide any inconveniences. Shouldn't be hassling. And we're now designing a new type of a car, rail car, that will be commissioned and put into practice in 2 years, and we will commission and launch new types of carriages each 2 years now.
Технологии цифровизации, конечно.
And we also will go digital. We want this endless process. 3, 2, 1. You just make a couple of clicks,
Сейчас огромное количество
and things
экологичности. У нас есть даже экологичность,
get off the ground.
когда можно последить,
And then come the ESG tenets.
выбросах.
We launched a CO2 calculator, like we
Все эти сервисы
can help people calculate
человека.
what is the reduction of CO2 emissions if they opt for train instead of a car, and how many trees are spared if you use an electric train instead of a diesel train. That will make the core of our activities by 2030, and the Russian Railway is one of the most advanced companies in our country with respect to connectivity, and your network permeates all the country, so it is of huge significance. You know, we have no more than 2 minutes. Yeah, we've been prompted. Well, we have had a very interesting and lively discussion. Mr. Zhukov, could you recap our debate today, representing the government? Well, I think that from the perspective of philosophy, we all agree that all the activities of the government and companies should be human-centered. The question is how quickly we're able to switch to this model. Budget-wise and capability-wise, we are okay. Like back in the 1990s, half of our budget was spent to pay the interest on our public debt, foreign debt. And now we have the necessary funds available. What matters is proper allocation of the funds. And the pandemic has shown that we are able to support the most vulnerable ones, like families with children. We can provide targeted support, and the bespoke measures are available and applied by us. So we should be guided by the ESG and the human capital tenets. I wish the Russian railways keep making us happy as a company and as an operator. When I wish all of us high spirits and good health and new and very interesting debates, and have a nice day. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you. Thank you.